Can you adjust your camera a little bit down?
Okay.
Little. Actually, I can't see your face properly.
Okay.
Little bit. Can you adjust your camera?
Hello.
Can you adjust your camera?
Is this fine?
No.
Is this fine?
Again, it is moving to.
This is okay. Is this fine now? Is this fine?
I can't see your face properly. I can see your half face only.
You okay? Is it fine now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Harkiran, can you share me your roles and responsibilities of your current and previous projects?
Yeah, I mean, in Verizon Wireless, it was my role was like using the RESTful web services, doing API calls on RESTful web service, and we are migrating the legacy applications into microservices, and so we will be using like Spring Boot architecture, and I will be using like SQL, MySQL for database management, and retrieving the database to to make the business logic, and also we'll be using like Git Stash, Jenkins for building the jobs, and Maven for building configuration management. And apart from that, I'm like using um the methods classes. We will be using some little bit of Java 7, and core Java concepts are utilized in this. And when it comes to migrating into microservice, so we'll be like setting up, using the service registry Eureka, and then we'll be using and Spring Cloud and Pivotal Cloud Foundry for deployment, for deploying the whole architecture.
Okay. So, Harkiran, how many years of experience you have in total IT?
I have like 5 years and 5 months.
Okay. So, what about Java, Spring, Hibernate?
Yes, yeah, I've utilized like Hibernate for 3 to 4 years,
Okay.
Java and Rest for 5 years.
Okay. So, what's your role in your project?
It was Java backend development.
Are you still in project, Harkiran? Hello.
Hello?
Yes. Are you still in project?
No, it is finished.
Yeah. Okay. So, Harkiran, can you tell the role of JDBS driver manager class?
Hmm. Driver management JDBs, we use it. First, we register the class. It comes, it provides the basic service for managing set of JDBC drivers, and then driver management class will be loading the driver classes. And it will be coming from Java or SQL or driver manager package, and then the driver is loaded to retrieve the databases, and then we'll be using the other things like get connections, which will establish the connection, and then after establishing the connection you have to write the SQL queries, and then that SQL queries will be updated in the execute statement in the result set, and then as you are putting all the databases in the result set as it is shown in the server, you have to close the connection by using connection dot close. the object of the connection will be there. Then we'll be using con.close.
Okay. Can you tell the life cycle Util for JSP?
What is that?
Life cycle Util for JSP.
Life cycle of JSP, yeah. In the Java server page, like first we what we do is like you know in this, like first we will be using like JSP init method for initialization. So it will be like first initialization will be there using JSP init method. Then in JSP service, it takes your main logic, business logic, and in that your request will be happening. In the request lifecycle, it will be taking towards response, and then after that, once the response is retrieved, you have to destroy the lifecycle using JSP destroy method.
Okay. For Karan, how you say ASP is better than servlet technology?
Better than servlet technology? Is it JSP?
Yes.
Um, you know, JSP is better than servlet technology because JSP, it's a it's HTML based code. It is faster than JS. Servlet is better in terms of performance. So I think servlet is better than JSP because it has got faster performance. JSP is very slow because of the translation of JSP to Java code and then compilation, which is directly done in case of servlet.
Okay. Can you differentiate between checked exception and unchecked exception?
Checked exception, unchecked means which is not checked at the unchecked will be like that are not checked at compile time, and checked are checked at the compile time only. Unchecked will be checked at runtime, and the other difference is like checked exceptions are the exceptions which are checked while you are compiling, and for other one, unchecked will be like which are not checked at compile time. For example, uh, you know uh, you can use unchecked exception. For example, errors are there, and runtime exceptions are there. These are examples of unchecked exceptions. But everything else under throwable keyword will come under checked exceptions.
Can you explain about exception hierarchy?
Exception hierarchy. Exception, yes, in exceptions, like it comes the classes. Classes are there, and queues will be there, priority queues, and errors, and throwable is divided into errors and exceptions. An exception will be taken into runtime exception, null pointer exception, and IOE exception. Under null pointer will come like number format, and you can have array index out of bounds, and in IO exception it will be like SQL exception, and then in queues it will take like priority queue, and a priority queue, and um, in terms of and also it will be vector will be a part of it, and array will be a part of it, and uh, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell how to create a custom exception?
How do we create a custom exception, like a custom exception, like in scenarios like if you're creating your own exception, that will be like custom exception or user defined exceptions, and we create a subclass of runtime exception simply because we don't want to specify the exceptions your methods can throw. So if you're not able to recover from any exceptions, then you can make it an unchecked exception.
Can you explain about get and post methods?
Get and post methods. Uh, gets is like trying to retrieve the database, the records from the database, and post is like when you're trying to create a new record into the database. And post is like you know uh, Both are the main differences. Like get will carry the request parameter through which is written in URL, and post is like carrying the request parameter in message body. So that your data is transferred from client to server.
What do you mean by aggregation?
What do you mean by?
Aggregation.
No, I didn't get you.
It's aggregation.
Aggregations. Okay. Aggregation is like when you're describing some relationship between the classes, between two classes, and so you can, depending on the conditions, you will have has a relationship, or or a whole part relationship. So it will be like a reference to another class, and then that is called aggregation, creating relationship between classes.
Okay. Can you explain about multiple inheritance? So how it is supported by Java?
Could you repeat this question?
Like multiple inheritance.
Multiple inheritance. Yeah, how it is supported in Java. Multiple inheritance is like a parent class is there, and several child classes will be there. And parent class, for example, it has like method. There is a class called vehicle, and it has a method run. So take an example of shape, class shape. So child methods are inheriting the behavior of parent class. That every child class has different shapes, like rectangle, triangle, squares, circles. So every child class is inheriting the behavior of parent class. So it's like multiple inheritance is happening. But in some cases, Java doesn't support multiple inheritance. It throws errors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you say override is a private or static method?
Overriding is a private or static method. Mm, we use private. Yeah, when we do method overriding, so it has a method overriding like uh, it will be we cannot override private or static methods in Java. So, but when we are trying to override it, so I think that method overriding will be since private methods in Java are not visible to any other classes, which limits their scope to the class. So hence, I would say that it's not private method.
Okay. Is the default value of fault and double data types
Default value of
float and double?
double default value for float will be 0.0f, and for double will be 0.0d.
So can you explain the checked exception?
Checked exceptions, yeah, which are checked exceptions are the exceptions which are that must be either caught or declared in the method, and it is coming from IO exception package. That is a checked exception, and these exceptions are checked at the compile time. For example, you can say that uh, like file reader method will be there, or this method throws a checked exception, uh, like file not found exception. So this is an example of checked exception because it is checked at compile time, and yeah.
Okay. Tell me, what do you mean by annotation based container configuration?
Annotation based container configuration is like yeah, you are simply using the annotations that can simply take the functionality of writing the methods explicitly. So annotation, for example, required annotation, so it get applies to bean property, setter methods. So it is used in case of setter methods. Auto-wide, for example, take auto-wide. Auto-wide is like you know instead of you to write the objects explicitly to create the relationships, auto-wide is traditionally taking the functionality of setter injection or constructor injection. So that's why you are using annotation auto-wide. So Yeah, annotation will be used in these, IOC containers.
Okay. Can you explain about bean life cycle?
Bean lifecycle first, bean is initiated. Uh, Bean lifecycle will be like first it will be initiated managed by IOC container, and then it so there are like two methods like initialization and destruction. So first you are writing first you are instantiating the bean, then you are populating the properties, then there will be like set bean name, and then set bean name will forward to set bean factory method is used, and then pre-initialization process start taking place with the help of bean post processors, and then it will go to call custom method, which is your init method, and then bean is ready to use, and then finally if the container you are shutting down the IOC container, so you have to use destroy method to to destroy the bean.
Okay. Can you differentiate between bean factory and application context?
Bean Factory is like a Bean Factory in application context. It's on top of the Bean Factory interface because it adds the extra functionality other than Bean Factory, such as you can do integration with Spring AOP. You can do event propagation. You can do method handling with application context. Secondly, second difference is like application context takes the resource easily. Application context does the event application publication. You can use message resource for internationalization. You can do Bean post processor registration and Bean factory post processor registration. So it's like more advantageous than Bean factory.
Okay. Can you tell the different components using Spring applications?
Different components of Spring application, like while you're using Spring, add the component will be like you're using the component will be like it's a stereotype for any Spring managed contents, and then you're also using at the uh, repository. You're using aspect-oriented programming. That's the first component of Spring. You are also using OXM. OXM is for object relational mapping. ORM is for mapping only, but for in case of JAX-B libraries for binding, for marshalling Java to XML and XML to Java, vice versa. And then you're using JPA. That's a part of Spring. We use for database access for in case of Hibernate, and we use struts for web development, and then a couple of other modules like transactions will be there. ORM is there. JDBC is there, and then uh, AOP context. These are the part of Spring.
Okay. So can you tell the modules using by Spring framework?
No, no, what?
Modules
Yeah, modules that I have used in
using
Spring
by
Framework.
yes.
Uh, I have used modules like aspect-oriented programming. I have used JMS. I have used ORM in case of Hibernate, and OXM for mapping from Java object to XML and vice versa. And I've used MVC, Spring MVC.
Can you tell the advantages of Spring framework?
Advantages of Spring Framework. Advantages like the first benefit will be configurations, flexibility is there. Secondly, you are using the uh, you can use Pojo classes. You can use there is no need of server. You can use aspect-oriented programming in Spring, and and then things like dependency injection is there. Inversion of control is taking care of application code. You don't need to write manual code to inject the dependencies, and then testing becomes very easier. And other things like it can provide loosely coupled applications. Loosely coupled codes can be generated from Spring Framework, and uh, and then modularity will be there.
Okay. Can you tell the usage of callback interface in Hibernate?
Callback interface in Hibernate. Yes, when you're using a callback, it's like uh, uh, I mean that you are doing like as you are making a pattern. So callback function will be taking a pattern in case to a common problem, and uh, and then what you're doing is you are passing some the passing functions as parameters to other functions to use them inside, and that is used in case of JavaScript libraries. And callback function will be like you are passing a parameter to another JavaScript function, and then callback function will be running inside of that function that it was passed into.
Tell me the how primary key is created by using Hibernate.
Primary key.
Yes.
Uh, Primary key in Hibernate. Yeah, so in Hibernate, when you're using primary key in terms of JPA, you can generate them in JPA in Hibernate. So your JPA is like persistence application programming interface, and that can help you to generate primary keys. There are four options to generate primary keys. You can do auto incremented columns, sequences. You can use at the rate generated value annotation. That's a simple way to produce a primary key. Uh, yes, that is the only way.
Okay. Can you tell what's the load and get methods?
Load and get method.
Yes, in Hibernate.
Load and get method in Hibernate. Get when you're using get. For the two difference will be both of them fetches the data from the database, but a few differences are there between load and get. That will be like uh, the thing is it returns the object when you're using get normally in Hibernate. So object is returned by fetching it from database, or from you can also use Hibernate cache to fetch database. Load is returning the reference of an object. That is it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, tell me, does Hibernate support polymorphism?
Polymorphism in Hibernate. So um, creating many objects in multiple forms. So yeah, it provides a complete support for polymorphism. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it will be, yeah, it is used in Hibernate, yeah, so it supports polymorphism.
Okay. Okay, can you explain about lazy loading? Sorry.
Lazy loading, yes, like it's a design pattern. You can use a design. It is a design pattern. You can use in Java. It's like a class is initialized when it is needed, and then an object is initialized. I mean, only when it is needed, and not before that. To preserve, it is used for simplicity of usage and uh, you know uh, improving the performance.
Okay, can you tell me advantages of Hibernate?
Advantages of Hibernate. Yeah, I mean, yes. First is like you can convert your. It has a dialect property, which can convert your database query into any specific base query. And then other advantages like its inheritance is used. It can support associations, selections, and it also supports different kinds of relationships like one to one, one to many, many to one.
Okay. Can you explain about the concurrency strategies?
Concurrency strategies in Java. Concurrency, um, concurrency, Java. Concurrency we use in sometimes we use like to avoid to make in case of race conditions in multi-threading, or so we use like uh, basically, we'll make the Java application concurrent with the help of this method, and so you can run several programs, parallelly. You can access shared resources parallelly in concurrency, and then you can, uh, Concurrency will require more resources to run an application. So you can make your application safe running. So basic advantage is that code can be executed by sharing multiple threads with the help of concurrency.
Okay. So can you differentiate between managed association and hibernate association?
No, I didn't get you.
Managed association and hibernate association.
Managed association versus hibernate associations. Like I mean, yeah, they both is like manage and hibernate will be managed association means that if a change is made to one end of association, it will be reflected at other end. And hibernate association will be hibernate associations are used in case of like one-to-many relationships and many-to-one relationships. Uh, uh, and and managed association are like relationship is built between the classes. Um so uh, so if you're making any change at one side of the application, it will be it will be seen in other application also that you have made a change. So that is possible through managed associations.
Can you explain about named SQL query?
About what?
So in hibernate,
SQL query in Hibernate.
how it is used?
Yeah, it is done as using annotation. You can use annotation at the rate named query. So you can do it using HQL and native SQL. Uh, yeah, so your queries are happen with the help of HQL only and native SQL commands you can use.
Can you explain about so what are the derived properties you are seen in hibernate?
Properties seen in Hibernate. Properties in Hibernate you can use
Derived
driver.
property. Yes, yes.
Which one? Which
Derived
properties?
properties.
Driver properties in Hibernate. Uh, you can use like hibernate.connection URL. That will be telling you that this URL is there, and when you are making your application, on the other side your application is configured to this property, and you can use a CFG, which is telling you new configuration. And then other thing you can do is you can add the resources. You can use session factory. JDBC connections will be there. That's a part of session factory. You can use connection.username, connection.password. Those will be telling you that you're writing you're giving the everything about your addresses, port numbers, node names, everything is done with the help of Hibernate properties.
Okay. Tell me the role of JMX.
JMX. JMX is like it is for management extensions. Uh, it will be managing monitoring applications, system objects, and you will be assigning the Java objects with some attributes, and yeah, JMX will be like managing resources, everything like services is managed, your devices, applications, these are managed.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I written down
Thank
your
you.
synopsis. I will send to the client.
Yeah.
Recruiters Sella with touch with you for the interview times. Have a nice day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.